Okay, let's talk about stringing the ukulele. The last video we talked about connecting the neck, making sure the box was nice and rigid. We kind of left off at when we were going to go ahead and install the bridge with a saddle. Again, we use this template. Again, I checked the measurements. It's exactly at 15 inches right at the top of this. And these saddles have a round radius on the top, so you're looking at the center line, not the leading edge, so it works out really well. So again, use the template, got everything put together. There were 2 small holes here. I put in some small screws, and then I covered them with these nice little plugs. It actually looks pretty good. So we go ahead and take the template off. Now we've got it secured. I've got a special problem with this in that if you'll notice, the cohiba is upside down. So what I really have is I now have a left-hander. So I'm going to have to find somebody who's a left-handed ukulele player that's going to use these. But it's really going to mess me up in putting the strings on here, but we'll try and work our way through it. So again, we went ahead and installed the tuners just like we do normally. Worked really well, good quality, enclosed tuners. I like that, works out well. Put them in, lined them up, tightened them up, put the screws back in, and secured it one more time. So now we're ready to install. So with this kit you get 4 strings, and those 4 strings are nylon strings, very typical of the ukulele strings. Some people want to go ahead and put steel strings on there. I don't know anything about that, but I'm excited about that. We've got these little markers on there, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but as you can see, some of them have already fallen off. So again, we'll have 4 strings. There's something on a ukulele called reentrant tuning, which means that the strings don't go from small to large. Actually, the second string down is bigger than the top string, but we're going to kind of work through that. So when you have the ukulele strings, and if you have a caliper, it's really kind of handy. You can actually measure the strings. There are 4 diameters. There's 0.024, 0.027, 0.36, and 0.031. 0.036 and 0.031 are the other 2 strings. So you got the 4 strings, 4 different size strings, and we'll talk about how we're going to do this. So I got to get my head straight because I'm doing it upside down. So this is a left-hander. So what I want to do is with a ukulele, you kind of want to start at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the smallest string, and I'm going to go ahead and install that and show you how you do that. And again, I've just kind of picked this up by watching other people, talking to a few people, and kind of understanding. First thing you'll notice is these strings are plenty long enough. They're plenty long enough. There's a lot on both ends. So the first thing we want to do is we want to come in, and you'll notice on the back of the bridge there's 4 holes. From the front you can come in, you can put the string through. You want to come out about 4 or 5 inches, about 4 or 5 inches. Okay. Then what you want to do is you want to come back over. You want to loop around underneath the front of the string, and then what you want to do is go inside once, inside twice, and then you want to snug it up. And you want to kind of cinch it up so where it's really kind of nice and tight looking, and you can kind of see how it works out there. Looks pretty well, nice and tight. And this is kind of typical. What you'll see a lot of people is that do ukuleles is how they do it. And so we have this string here. It's not time to cut it off. It's time to go to our next string. And again, on the bottom, again, because this is left-handed, I got to do it differently. On the bottom is my 0.024 string. Then my next string is my 0.027 string. And again, what we do is we come through the front, and I suppose you could go through the back if you wanted to. Come through the back or front, okay? Loop it over, come around once, twice. But before you cinch it up, and kind of what's the standard is to take the lead, the remaining lead from 1, and stick it through there. Pull it through the loop that you've created, then kind of cinch it up. Cinch it, pull a little bit on this, you got to pull it tight, pull it up, and now we got the 2 leads. Okay, so now the 3rd string up from the bottom is the bigger string. It's the thickest string. It's the 0.036 string. So what we want to do is, and these kind of get in your way a little bit, kind of hang them out of the way, take our 0.036, come through from the front to the back about 4 inches, over the top, around, come underneath once, come underneath twice, cinch it up. But we got to get these other strings, got to get them kind of laid in there because we want to make it look nice and neat and professional like all the ukulele people do. So we get it there, and again, cinch it up. Cinch it up nice and tight. So now we have the 3 strings looking pretty good. We've got them nice and cinched up. Then we take our 4th string, which is our .031, do the same thing. Come in from the top. Get these other strings all lined up and ready to go. Over the top, underneath. Loop it once. Loop it twice. Get all those other ones, the previous strings, get their tails nice and neat in there. And cinch it up, and it looks pretty good. We've got our 4 strings nice and pulled together. Gonna work out pretty well. So now we've got it anchored down at the bottom end at the bridge or over the top of the saddle, nice and solid. Let's move our attention up to the front and running them through the tuners, just much like what we do on a normal one. Now, one thing to understand with these nylon strings, they really stretch. So when I'm doing a steel string, I need a lot of slack because I want it to stack up nice and neat on my tuner. You don't need that on here. So what I do, seems to work out pretty well, is go through the tuner hole once, snug it up, fairly snug, not real tight, and then come back around and go back through the tuner again, okay? Again, fairly snug. Now again, these strings are nylon and they're gonna stretch. So you gotta start cranking it. Again, counterclockwise. I was going the wrong way to start. Go counterclockwise and start cranking it and watching it, make sure that it's lining up nice and neat. And it takes a lot. You really have to tighten them up. We're just going to go ahead and finish getting it all strung up through the tuners, and then we'll come back later and actually do the tuning. So again, go through the tuner, come around, go through it again, kind of snug, pull out the slack. Get it kind of snug. And start cranking away. And we'll come through with our 3rd from the bottom string, which is, as we know, is our heavier string. It gets a little bit tight going through the tuners, through there now, trying to get it through that hole to get 2 strings through there. But again, snug it up. We're doing pretty good. And now we got the last string, which is going to be our 031 string. Take it through the tuner. Get it up on the nut. Come around again. Snug it up. And start cranking. And I have a little clippers here. I use a little pair of fingernail clippers. They work really well on these small strings, getting a nice clean cut, and you can get right in there. So we cut it off on the bottom so it looks nice and neat, nice and organized. Come up on the top, do the same thing. So we've got it strung, and again, I guess I should be playing this left-handed because it is kind of a left-handed deal. So we've got the strings on, and I can tell you what's interesting from having done this. Totally different experience than what you'd ever have with a cigar box guitar or even a normal guitar. Steel strings, you know, you can tighten them up, you get pretty close. Maybe they switch a little bit, loosen up a little bit, you got to tighten them a little more. With these things, you're tightening them quite a bit. You tighten them up and let them set for a little bit, and they'll stretch. And you got to tune them up again and tune them up again and tune them up again. So it takes quite a bit to get these all tightened up. But again, pretty straightforward, easy to wire, easy to put the strings on, ready to get go. And now what I'll do is just get it tuned up and see how it plays. Not that I can play it, but we'll see how it sounds. Thanks a bunch. Hope this was helpful. Bye.